Mr. Vikram Nair.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the journey for equal rights for women has been a long one. Around 2 centuries ago, the first organized women's movement started. In the UK, they were called suffragettes, fighting for suffrage or the right to vote. It was only around the middle of the last century that women obtained the right to vote in most countries. Singapore moved quickly. We passed the Women's Charter in 1964, and the aim of this legislation was to give women equal rights in marriage and at work. This ended long-standing practices like polygamy, and women were also required to attend school and encouraged to join the workforce, and did well in both areas. Women have enjoyed equal rights at law for a long time. However, equality at law was just the start of the journey. Equal rights in substance is a longer journey, and this white paper facilitates that journey with concrete actions. The 25 actions are comprehensive and touch on many of the issues that women face today. While there are many initiatives I find interesting, I will focus on 2 broad areas in this speech, namely equal opportunities in the workplace and the recognition and support of caregivers. In simple terms, these initiatives strive towards substantive equality at work and at home. Under Area 1, Actions 1 and 2 provide an important development in Singapore's employment law. I had spoken in favor of anti-discrimination legislation in earlier debates. Now, this is relevant in many contexts, including protecting against discrimination based on gender, race, religion, and back then was nationality. In the absence of legislation, MOM had given effect to the tripartite guidelines on fair employment practices by linking companies' rights to tap foreign workers to compliance with these guidelines. So Singaporeans had to be given fair consideration before you could employ foreign workers. If these guidelines are now legislated, then it will apply more broadly to all employers, even those who do not employ foreign workers. Grievance handling procedures and protection of complaints will also be required. I expect this will require a cultural shift amongst employers in Singapore. For a long time, we had strict contractual interpretation of employment rights, and it was easy for employers to both hire and fire. Now, employers will need to make hiring and promotion decisions more carefully, and in practical terms, will likely need to properly document decisions to prevent allegations of unfairness. Flexible work arrangements will be promoted with new tripartite guidelines that envision requiring employers to fairly consider requests for flexible work arrangements. Many employers had to radically rethink their work arrangements over the last 2 years with work-from-home requirements. Hopefully, the lessons learned from this experience will not be lost, but will instead be utilized when we return to business as normal. Of course, flexible work is a lot more than just working from home. It includes the option to work shorter hours or lesser days in a week, which will require employers to put in more thought in the work scope of individual employees. Again, though, these flexible work arrangements should be equally available to men and women to be effective. This is so that, for example, in certain households, if men wish to play a bigger role in caregiving, they may also need to avail themselves of flexible work arrangements to play this role. Otherwise, if flexible work arrangements apply only to women, it may have the perverse effect of forcing women to continue to bear the caregiving load using these arrangements. Finally, on this front, I would also welcome the initiative to promote greater board diversity. Now, this is being done through changes in the listing rules and code of corporate governance. Again, though, I note that diversity is not intended to cover gender alone, but other forms of diversity, and I assume this would also include diversity in terms of race, professional background of members of the board. As boards provide leadership to companies, having diverse boards would provide companies with a greater depth of perspective, as well as have a positive knock-on effect within the ranks of companies, as diverse boards are more likely to pick from a wider pool of talent for leadership and executive positions in the company as well. These legislative changes detract somewhat from the freedom to contract model that we have adopted in relation to employment law for a long time. But I believe that these are necessary derogations, as these initiatives protect employees in vulnerable positions. The combination of more flexible work arrangements, as well as fair consideration principles being legislated, could go a long way to allow men and women the ability to remain in the workforce and not be embarrassed or discriminated against if they decide to take different work arrangements to attend to caregiving needs. When we move from workplace to home, we also find that women often bear the bulk of caregiving responsibilities. The second set of actions, 7 to 11, provide a wide-ranging suite of measures to lighten the caregiver's load. Action 7 provides direct respite for caregivers by adding basic child and elder minding services to the household services scheme. The financial strain will be eased with grants such as the Home Caregiving Grant and the expanded Seniors Mobility and Enabling Fund, with further future support envisioned. Access to affordable preschools is going to be enhanced, and there's also a focus on mental and physical health of caregivers, with support networks being set up. These options are important because they significantly ease the load many women carry at home. Again, as with flexible work arrangements, I would suggest that these grants and support be provided on a gender-neutral basis, so that if the caregiver at home is the man, these grants and support should be equally accessible to them. In addition, I would suggest that it may help to have support networks that are specific to male caregivers, as they may face a different stigma from female caregivers. A newspaper feature on stay-at-home fathers who did the caregiving while their lives were the primary caregivers, primary breadwinners, highlighted the stigma that many of them face. Yet, these men are the best examples of men supporting their wives with their aspirations and should be celebrated. So if behaviors like this get more normalized, this may have a much stronger impact on the overall journey to gender equality. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to say a few words in Tamil. கடந்த ஆண்டு குமாரி இந்திராணி ராஜாவுடன் நான் கலந்து கொண்ட இந்திய சமூக பெண்களுடனாக மகளிர் மேம்பாட்டு கலந்துரையாடலில் போது என்னுடன் பகிர்ந்து கொள்ளப்பட்ட அனுபவங்களை இந்த மன்றத்தில் நான் எடுத்துரைத்தேன். அவற்றில் பல விடயங்கள் இப்போது நேரடி செயல் திட்டங்களால் பயனடைந்துள்ளன. இவற்றுள் ஒரு பெரிய அளவிலான மேம்பாடானது நியாயமான பணியிட நடைமுறைகள் குறித்த முத்தரப்பு வழிகாட்டுதல்களை சட்டமாக்கியது. இதன் பொருள் என்னவென்றால், தகுதியின் அடிப்படையில் மக்களுக்கு வாய்ப்புகள் வழங்கப்பட வேண்டும் மற்றும் பாலினம் போன்ற தேவையற்ற கருத்துக்களை பரிசீலனைகளில் எடுத்து கொள்ளக்கூடாது. மேலும் வெளிப்படையங்களாக பேசுபவர்களை பாதுகாப்பதற்கான நடவடிக்கைகளும் நடப்பில் உள்ளன. பெண்கள் பல குடும்பங்களில் பெரும்பாலும் இளையவர்களும் முதியவர்களையும் பராமரிப்பவர்களாக இருக்கிறார்கள். குடும்பங்களுக்கு கூடுதலான விருப்புரிமைகள் வழங்கும் பொருட்டு இந்த அறிக்கை சிறுவர் மற்றும் மூத்தவருக்கான அடிப்படை பராமரிப்பு சேவைகள் உள்ளடங்கிய குடித்தன சேவைகள் திட்டத்தை விரிவுபடுத்த முன்மொழிகிறது. கடுப்படியான விலையில் பாலர் பள்ளி சேவைகள் வழங்கப்படுவதுடன் மூத்தோரை பராமரிப்பவர்களுக்கு வெவ்வேறு மானியங்களின் வழிநிதி ஆதரவும் வழங்கப்படும். உடல்குறை உள்ளோர் மற்றும் வளர்ச்சி தேவைகள் உள்ள சிறுவர்களுக்கு இன்னும் கூடுதலான ஆதரவுகளும் வழங்கப்பட்டுள்ளது. மகளிருக்கான இன்னும் சமமான சமுதாயத்தை உருவாக்கவும், இல்லங்கள் மற்றும் பணியிடங்களில் பெண்கள் ஆற்றி வரும் முக்கியமான பணிகளை ஆதரிக்கவும் இவ்விரைவான அறிக்கை முனைகிறது. அதில் மேற்கோள் காட்டப்படவை சில எடுத்துக்காட்டுகள் மட்டுமே. Madam Deputy Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you.